Let's move on to agenda item 7, the Standards and Assessment Committee report. We'll turn time over to Chair Earl.
You give me just a second to pull it up. I know. I'm like, oh, I don't know that we can do that. Hold on a second. I have so many documents pulled up here. Let me get to. Well, you can say whatever you want. All right, let's see. Standards and assessment. We had 3 items. The first item that came before us was the R277 474, which is school instruction and sex education amendment. And we're going to do the consent form first. And so let me make sure, let me pull that up. So you have the consent form before you, and there is one, well, let me put the motion before the body, sorry.
And this is agenda item
7.3.
I believe.
Yes, sorry. I got to get to my summary of actions so that we've got the right motion coming forward. I should have printed it off so I could move it around. Yes. Okay, so the motion for the board is that the board approve the consent form document, draft 2 in R277 474, school instruction and sex education. And I do have an amendment for that.
Okay, so the motion's been stated. Since you have the mic, we'll go to you for an amendment. And then before that amendment, I know we have a light from Member Davis. Are you speaking to? You have an amendment, so you'll be after Member Earl. Go ahead, Member Earl.
Yes, let me find where my amendment got sent. There we go, Elise Newey. Okay, so the amendment would be, it's not lined, so there's a portion there where you get about halfway down, where it would be to strike, Utah educator may correct inaccurate or misleading information in accordance with the approved instructional materials adopted by the LEA, or they may direct students to parents. That was stricken, and in place of that would be putting in accordance with Utah State Board of Education Rule R277 474 7-4, teachers may answer student questions or correct inaccurate statements as long as the answer is consistent with state law and the approved instructional materials. Educators may also direct students to parents. And then if that's seconded, I can speak to that.
Do we have a second? Okay, we had a second, sorry. Okay, we have a second. Back to you, Member Earl.
Yeah, so what the key thing here is that the law passed said you can't do spontaneous questions. Teachers can't respond to those. And I think that was directed because of some educators were soliciting questions or this type of a thing instead of just responding to questions that came naturally through the course of the content. It just lent itself to, anyways, some different problems there. But the question came, can they answer a question if it's asked in class? And so I think this is in response to that, as long as it stays within the law and it stays within the instructional materials that are approved by the district already. Now, if they don't have really great instructional materials, I guess we got a problem, right? But that's kind of where that's the thought process there. And of course, an educator can always refer students back to their parents. But the other concern is to make sure that we're correcting inaccurate information if there's something that's inaccurate. Jody Parker had a number of examples to share, but I think the idea is to make sure that students are getting information that's accurate and not just trends that are going on TikTok or something. So,
thank you. So the motion then is to amend draft 2 to read as follows: in accordance with Utah State Board of Education R277 or Education Rule R277-474-7.
Big debate. Do we leave medical professionals in? Do we take medical professionals out? It originally had parents or, oh, I didn't get a second.
Yeah, let's make
Wait a
sure that your
second.
motion is,
To me and said, look, I've breaking out in blisters in this awful place. You know, the first thing I'm going to say is I'm not a doctor. I'm going to say I'm not a doctor. I can't give medical advice. So I think then in that case, you would say, you know, you need to talk to your parents.
Professionals would be people in medical school to me. Um,
Let me think about
So, do you want to say working with medical professionals? Two parents working with medical professionals?
I'll
Or-
say
Or what is it?
direct student.
That they may need to look in a book, they may need, I just don't think it's, that they may need to look in a book, they may need, I just don't think I don't think it's necessary. I think that it's already, I don't think it's necessary. I think that it's already, when you're directing to the parents, they have the responsibility to, if there's the parents, they have the responsibility to, if there's a medical need, to get the medical care. So
The way this reads, it doesn't read the way this reads, it doesn't read the way it's expressed intent. And so I would offer that teachers will say to parents all the time, I'm not a doctor, you know, if you're concerned about this scratch. I'm not a doctor, you know, if you're concerned about this scratch, you need to see a doctor. If you are concerned about X, they're not medical professionals. They can't refer for medical treatment, but they can say, I'm not refer for medical treatment, but they can say, I'm not a doctor. If you are not a doctor, if you are concerned, you need to see a doctor. And
Depending on the age of the student too, an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, you might,
They're
a
concerned.
question to the maker of the motion? Is that
Yeah,
what- is
the
that what
reason
that
I
is?
chose this
Okay.
language this way is because as the committee discussed it, there were like 4 different definitions of health professionals, and some were too extensive, and committee members had concerns, and so as I was listening to the committee, thought, well, there's got to be a way to allow the teacher to still say, I'm not a doctor, and that's who might have to answer this question, but to put the responsibility in the parent's lap. So this is a parent consent form. The parent signs this, I guess they could make a note on it, say, don't ever, you know, say to my kid, we might need to talk to medical professional. But what it's saying is that I'm going to send the kid back to you and say, you all might need to talk to a doctor, because so many times the teacher's going to say, I'm not a doctor. That's a medical question that I'm not equipped to answer.
thanks.
Yeah, just for clarity, or point of information, when an educator suggests a doctor, then they're responsible for that doctor.
That's why this says to send them to the parent who may consult with medical professionals.
Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to speak against the motion. I don't think it's necessary. If we send them to the parents, I think the presumption is the parent will act in the child's best interest. If the student goes up to a teacher and says, hey, there was an accident in the playground, we don't say, well, talk to your parents and they may consult with a lawyer, right? Or if they do something wrong, we don't say, oh, you're feeling guilty, well, talk to your parents and maybe consult with a priest. No offense, Rod. But, you know, like, we don't make those distinctions, so I would just speak against the motion. Thank you.
Member Green.
Yeah, my first question is, by not allowing this sentence, like, to end, who may consult with medical professionals, would this disallow a teacher from saying that? Because it's like, oh, you might want to go to a doctor. You know, if you've got something funny going on, you might want to see it. Go talk to your parents, and you might need to go to the doctor. Like, it just gets kind of a natural sentence already. So if we didn't pass this, are we saying that they can't say that? And if not, then I would say I wouldn't support this, because I think it muddies the waters on something that maybe naturally occurs anyway. That would be my argument.
Thank you. Member Brenton. Member Kelly.
Yeah, I think the worry is that we place the burden on the teacher of diagnosing and telling a student what the next step should be, when really that's the responsibility of the parent. And I think it's important for us just to recognize that the parent really has that decision-making power, and it's not the teacher's responsibility to refer a student to, as Joe mentioned, either a lawyer or a medical professional or a counselor or anything of the sort.
Thank you. So the motion before the committee is, this is an amendment to amend, is to add to the last sentence, or they may direct students to parents who may consult with medical professionals. Let's vote. Yeah. Member Reel? Okay.
Can I go in 1 second? Hold on.
Okay. Oh, is it still open? Okay.
Am I still able to talk?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, we had a kid getting in trouble. So just, yeah. Speaking of parents,
Yeah.
I'm in support of that Member Davis's amendment, and I think I expressed this when we were in our standards meeting as well. I know that we have a goal
Member
to
Reel.
have our students follow. Yes.
We are voting. I didn't know you had a hand up for comment.
I had the whole time. It's all right. And then I got distracted because a kid scratched another kid's, but it's all right. I'm a yes on Member Davis's motion, obviously.
Thank you. I hope things settle down for you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. That motion fails. 11 in opposition, 4 in favor, those being Member Reel, Member Booth, Member Lear, Member Davis. This brings us back to the motion that, the amendment that Member Earl had put forward, where we strike the language in draft 2 and replace it with teachers may answer student questions or correct inaccurate statements as long as the answer is consistent with state law and the approved instructional materials. Educators may also direct students to parents. I'm gonna go back to Member Reel and see if she would like to speak to this, since she was speaking to it during voting. Member Reel?
Thanks, Chair. I think at this point, if the amendment failed, I think there's an importance in health education to have those medical professionals involved, especially when we don't know the student situation. And I think that although ideally, I think parents can be equipped with a lot of information, similar to what Member Lear was saying, they aren't necessarily always so, and sometimes their post life, their family life isn't necessarily a safe space. So I don't think that is why I was in favor of Member Davis's motion originally, but at this point, I think I can't amend it again, so.
Thank you, Member Reel. Vice Chair Hart.
Yeah, I just need a little bit of help. What is if through you, I'm hoping that the maker of the motion, what is the difference between what is crossed off and what is amended? I'm not, what's the material difference?
Member Earl?
So there's two things. It's combining the inaccurate and misleading information and only saying inaccurate information.
Okay.
And then it's also, previously we didn't have anything about a student asking a question. So it's creating a framework around questions during the class that naturally occur related to the content. So it would be related to the approved instructional materials and also within state law. So the concern was originally, can students ask questions in class at all? Because there's the
Oh,
issue
so
over there.
this allows
This allows
students to ask questions?
within the parameters that are stated there.
Because
Yeah.
the
Answering
first
que-
one.
It's not the asking, it's the answering, so it's the,
So the first one, people were afraid that they couldn't even
yeah, that's.
allow students to ask questions?
Apparently, yeah, that was the concern that would kind of bubbled up, is that can we even, can we respond to a question even asked in class?
Okay. And it
So-
says, yes, they can.
As long as it's within those parameters.
Okay.
Thank you. Member Lear?
To the maker of the motion and just see if this is, if this is something contemplated within this, I don't need to wordsmith it into oblivion, but would inaccurate or misleading, I don't want a teacher to get in trouble because someone picks out an answer and she'd provided, maybe it was incomplete. Maybe the may correct inaccurate, misleading, or incomplete information. So as long as we're talking about an educator giving a reasonable answer that people are not going to, and we can't speak to what people are going to say or do, but if the sense of this is if it's within the intent of this, are we comfortable so that we're not picking at the words or making teachers intimidated to say, well, okay, was what she said inaccurate? No. Is what she said misleading? Well, maybe not. Is it? But it's not the whole, it's not an accurate, complete statement. So then I can't say anything. So is the intent that they can answer something reasonably without fear of losing their jobs? Or are you really trying to be that prescriptive?
Member Earl?
Look, we put the questions back in so that if a student asked a question related to the content of the curriculum, they could respond to it. Now, they could do it multiple choice if they wanted. I mean, there's all kinds of ways they could do it. I'm not sure I understand if we're trying to say, oh, was that accurate enough? That's not the point. The point is that there's a lot of inaccurate information that gets spread out there, TikTok and other sources. The point is the ability to be able to address those if those come up in a way that, yeah. I mean, it's not meant to catch anyone. If we want to not even have that in there, then the law just says they can't do spontaneous questions and we can leave it at that. I thought this would be more precise. It would give some clarity around it. So it's not a catch you. I think I mean, I guess anybody could interpret anything they wanted, but.
Okay. I feel good about that. I just wanted to make sure that the intent was to let teachers correct information, whether it's incomplete or inaccurate or misleading.
Thank
And
you.
if you're saying, I hear you saying yes to that, but, I just, okay. I don't know the circumstances. No, none of us do.
Yeah.
I just don't want teachers to be paralyzed because they're analyzing whether is this inaccurate, is it misleading, is it a little bit off? And if the intent is to let them provide accurate information to students, then I'm for that.
Thank you. So the motion before the board then is, again, I don't see a lot other lights. I think we're ready to vote. So let me restate the motion. The motion is to strike a Utah educator may correct inaccurate or misleading information in accordance with the approved instructional materials adopted by the LEA, or they may direct students to parents, and replace that with teachers may answer student questions or correct inaccurate statements as long as the answer is consistent with state law and the approved instructional materials. Educators may also direct students to parents. Let's vote. Member Reel?
No.
That passes, 13 in favor, 1 no vote, and 1 absent. That no vote coming from Member Reel and Member Kelly absent. That brings us back to the motion that was stated, and that is that the board approve the consent form document draft 2 as amended in R277-474 School Instruction and Sex Education. I have a light from Member Earl, then Member Bogus.
Nope.
Okay, Member Bogus.
On the backside of this form, in option 2, it states in the parental attestation, if you will, I understand that my child will receive an alternate assignment of equal value. What does that mean?
Point value, yeah, that they won't have a assignment worth 50 points while everybody else has one of 100 points. It'd be the same valued assignment.
Do you think that that will be understood?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you. So the motion then is, once again, let me restate that the board approved the consent form document draft 2 in R277-474 School Instruction and Sex Education. Let's vote. Member Reel?
Reel's a yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Back to Chair Earl.
Yes, the next item is the companion piece with this, the rule that goes along with it. And so the motion for the board is that the board approve R277-474 draft 2 on second and final reading, and I have an amendment for that one as well.
That's in order.
Okay, and let me pull up my document again. Okay, so the amendment would be, I don't have the line, but do you have the line by chance? Okay. Line 215? Yeah, sorry. Either way, is it 215 then? Is that right? Okay, so it would be to amend it, section 2, or draft 2, section 7, subsection 4 to read as follows. A Utah educator may correct inaccurate or misleading information or answer questions asked by students in accordance with the approved instructional materials and the provisions in Utah Code 53G 10402. And then that's A. B would be educators may also direct students to parents in these circumstances.
Thank you. The motion has been stated and is before you. Do we have a second? We have a second. Go ahead, Member Earl.
It's just the same argument as the piece we just argued, that we had the inaccurate, misleading information, and it's just adding in there that they may ask questions as long as they're related to they don't overstep the law or the instructional materials that are approved by their local LEA. So.
Thank you. So the motion before the board then is that R277-474 draft 2 subsection 7 or section 7 subsection 4 reads as follows. A Utah educator may correct inaccurate or misleading information or answer questions asked by students in accordance with the approved instructional materials and the provisions in Utah Code 53G-10-402. With another subset B, educators may also direct students to parents in these circumstances. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member
Reel is a yes.
Thank you, Member Reel. That passes unanimously. Back to you. Oh, I'm sorry, not back to you. So we have Member Carey.
I have a motion, if that's in order. Staff's already got it on the board, and this would just be to amend lines 106 and I believe 107 to read an LEA may not teach or adopt instructional materials that include contraceptive methods or devices as outlined in 53G 10-402, paren 2, or any other instructional materials contravening state law or board rule. It's basically a rewrite of what's there.
That's-
Oh,
Let's get a second if we have one. We have a second. Back to you, Member Carey.
thank you. The way the language currently stands is that we're saying the superintendent may not require. If it's state law, it's not about the superintendent requiring or not requiring, it's the law, and we should expect compliance. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion before the board then is to amend draft 2, line 106 and 107 to read, an LEA may not teach or adopt instructional materials that include contraceptive methods or devices as outlined in 53G-10-402, section 2, or any other instructional materials contravening state law or board rule. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Oh, hold on one sec. We don't have any lights, but we have some, sorry, I went too quick. While Elise is going over that, Vice Chair Wood has a question.
I'm trying to read the code.
Yeah. Let's just pause for a second. We have some people doing some homework. Yeah, can we get that back up? Thank you. Good call. I've seen lights go off. Are we? Okay, so let me restate the motion. The motion is to amend R277-474, draft 2, line 106 through 107 to read as follows. An LEA may not teach or adopt instructional materials that include contraceptive methods or devices as outlined in 53G-10-402, section 2, or any other instructional materials contravening state law or board rule. Member Lear.
And I'm not sure to whom to direct this. And I feel like this is deja vu all over again for the 100th time, but may not teach or adopt that include, I guess it's the include I'm challenged with. You can certainly, as I understand it, it's okay to have a book or a material or something that explains what a contraceptive method or device is, but it can't be promoted. Am I wrong about that? Is that right, Jody? I'm inappropriately directing that to a specialist.
You have a question for staff. I see Elise's light is on, but Jody's shaking her head. How would you like to proceed here? Vice Chair Hart, you have a comment?
Elise, do you have the law that it refers to? Can you show it?
Maybe that would help.
We get in trouble when we go off the law as a board. So the closer we can stay to the law, the better off our rules are. And that way our practitioners aren't stuck between no man's land of
So
rule
let's use the
and law.
language in the law.
Yeah.
That's what I'm, so let's see what it's, and if the legislators have left it sort of vague, then I guess we'll make a good faith effort. Right there. Mhm. To include stresses.
Right, and we changed it to superintendent, and I just changed it to say, why won't the law,
To include information about or devices that stresses. So what verbs are we taking? Are we? 2D may not require an LEA to teach or adopt instructional materials that include, may not require an LEA. So, okay, but that doesn't say what I think it was saying previously. So I think what we're providing in rules goes beyond what this what this provision says.
We have a comment from Member Bollinger. If Member Lear, you,
I'm
I know
through
you, I
for
know
now.
you're,
I'm,
yeah,
I'm just processing, so.
sure, Member Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. Can we actually bring the motion back up? I just wanted to read it. I just think that the language, the way that it says an LEA may not teach or adopt instructional materials that include contraceptive methods or devices, I think that that language is really confusing to health teachers and to LEAs. They may not be going to the code. So if we're trying to clarify something different from code, then maybe there's a need for it. But it just, for me, that language makes it even more confusing of what they can and cannot do.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wood.
So the current language is saying that we as a state cannot dictate what a district or an LEA chooses to teach in regards to contraceptive methods. The law allows there to be some explanation of, as dictated, the effectiveness, limitation, risks, and information. That the current amendment does, I think, contradicts what we're trying to say through this, is that we as a state don't get to choose that.
Member Carey.
Yeah, the way I read D is that we just, meaning the state board, we cannot require the LEA to teach or adopt instructional materials that include information on contraceptive methods or devices. We certainly don't do that with the language of the motion. We're not requiring them to teach, we're doing the opposite. Now, then the question becomes, is that the purview of the board? But D is in opposite to the language that we have, that's in the current motion. But if there's other language in the code that suggests we can't do what I've made in the motion, I'm open to consider that. But the language in the motion is not in contravention to subsection D as I understand it, because we're not requiring anyone to teach it.
Okay, Member Lear.
I believe that what we've got in our rule now goes beyond the requirement in the code.
Member Carey.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If it's in the code and someone can point that out, I am happy to re-examine the motion or pull the motion, but I don't see how this goes above and beyond what's in code. But if somebody can show it to me, I'm happy to reconsider the motion. Otherwise, I think it's appropriate.
That's right. And just
Response,
being
Member Lear.
argumentative, but my point is that in the code, it says the state board may not require. The rules saying, going one step further and saying now, and I can't, the state, I can't remember the exact language, but it's going a step beyond that to say, and the person may not teach, or and a teacher. Again,
Prohibited.
it's prohibited, which is, I think, a step beyond what the law is saying.
We have, well, I'm going to go to Member Carey to respond since I think that's directed.
The law is saying.
We have, well, I'm going to go to Member Carey to respond since I think that's directed at him. We also have Elise with the light on and Member Davis.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that D does not apply to this language because D says the state board cannot require an LEA to teach about contraceptives. We are clearly not doing that with this language. But I'm also saying, if anyone has language that shows that this is counter to state law, that we are going beyond what the statute permits, let me know, and I'm happy to re-examine this language.
Thank you. Member Davis, do you want to go first, or Elise?
I'll read it.
Elise, go ahead,
Oh.
and then we'll hear from Vice Chair Hart.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, so in the code, it says that the state board shall make rules that, and then if you go down to 4, allows instruction to include information about contraceptive methods or devices. And so this does explicitly require the state board to include that in the instruction. So I think the issue here is, I don't think that there's anything that prohibits that in Carrie's language, but I think it would require LEAs to dig into the code to realize that nuance. And that may be like what Board Member Bollinger said, the issue there is that it would require an understanding of that nuance.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time? You're saying that in the code, it does say that,
So B, so it's 2B, if you start there. In accordance with Title 63G, Chapter 3, that part, the state board shall make rules that an instruction shall, and then you go down to 4, the IV, except as provided in 2D, allow instruction to include information about contraceptive method or devices that stress effectiveness, limitations, risk, and information on state law.
I'm gonna go to Member Brenton just for a quick comment, and then we've got Member Davis.
I was just reading what Elise was saying in that number 4. We can't, this is allowing instruction if the LEA chooses it. So we need to be careful that we don't overstep. That is actually what the code says right there.
Thank you. Member Davis.
I was just gonna make a substitute motion that we just use the exact language in code.
Member Carey.
If we could see the language of the proposed substitution, that may be a friendly, but I'd like to see the language before.
That's where I am as well. I mean, unless we just cite code, but if we're confused, I'm sure there's going to be other, not saying that we know everything, but if confusion exists in here, I'd imagine it would exist out there.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah.
Chair, if I may, if I could direct you to line 78 of the rule, it already includes that language from the code about allowing for it. That is fairly close to the code, so.
Member Davis, your light is on. And
I think I'm not going to substitute. I'm just
Okay.
going to vote no. I feel like the amendment language makes it sound like it's prohibited to someone who doesn't go and research the code, but the code makes it so you have to allow it. And so I think it can be confusing for people who aren't going to do lots of homework to figure it out.
Okay. Member Brenton.
Can I make a substitute motion to use the language in code, to substitute it for the language in code?
So substitute Member Carey's motion you can. I think what they're saying
Is it already is there?
Well, they think they're saying that it's already in here through lines 78 through 82. Member Brenton, you want to think about that for a second,
yeah.
process that? Member Carey?
Yeah, and I think Deputy Newey said this, it is not a replication of what's in code, it's an adaptation of what's in code. And so if we're saying that we want clarity, let's just put what's in code. So I think the motion for substitution, it wasn't ruled out of order, but I could see the need for it because the language in lines 78 through 82 are not a reflection of what is in statute.
Out of curiosity or clarification, was that wasn't replacing your motion? I'm trying to be respectful of where your motion is compared to where these lines are. So do we need to vote a motion down or up, and then do we need to because this substitute, I guess it just would replace yours. Yeah, you're right. So Member Brenton, if you're ready to make a substitute motion, we can. Let's go to Member Newey, or Deputy Superintendent Newey, while you process that. Go ahead, Elise.
Apologies. Just wanted to add some more context. So the addition in this, so the difference that you're seeing in the code and in this rule actually has to do with HB 281. So HB 281 amended the language in code so that it does read exactly like this, but it just doesn't go into effect until July. So staff was being proactive in using the soon-to-be effective code language word for word.
Thank you. Thank you, Elise. Okay, Member Brenton. I know. Okay. Okay. Member Earl.
Understand where Board Member Carey's going with this, and I don't know if someone's working on something, but this is actually making it sound like that you're supposed to be doing this. I mean, almost like but it's actually optional, right? That we just can't, our restrictions is we can't tell someone to do this. But this, the way it's worded now, it makes it, yeah, it says allow, but it makes it sound like you could do it. So somehow it's got to be, it's the choice of the district.
There's no shall. There's no shall. Shall would be you do it, and allow is it's optional.
Keep going, Member Earl.
Yeah. All the voices in my head are surrounding me sometimes. It's so hard. So let me ponder for a minute. I think I see where we're headed here, because the concern is that it's like, it looks as if you're supposed to.
Can we take 5? I know. Can we take 5 minutes? And I'm going to go stretch my back, and you guys can actually do work. How's that? Thank you. We'll take 5.
I teach a value budget, so let's get off our back.
Board members, let's see if we can get back to business here. As a reminder, we are on agenda item 7.4, R277-474, school instruction and sex education. We have a motion on the floor by Member Carey. It's to, I don't know if it's add or replace language. It's to amend. It's to amend. Let's just give it a second to get back up on the screen. Okay. The motion that's before the board is to amend line 106 to 107 to read as follows: an LEA may not teach or adopt instructional materials that include contraceptive methods or devices as outlined in 53G-10-402, section 2, or any other instructional materials contravening state law or board rule. Now, I see that there's a potential substitute motion. I'm going to go back to Member Carey, who made this motion, and we just took 5 minutes to kind of get a grip on where we wanted to go with this. So, Member Carey, if you want to speak, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank the board. The language that is there does not reflect the intent. And so after speaking with staff and several board members, if it's appropriate, I'd like to substitute my own motion if there's bandwidth for that.
There is, please.
And the motion would have two parts. And the first part would be that the board amend line 78 to read 2A, subject to subsection 1C, and LEA. I was trying to talk as slowly as possible, but it wasn't slow enough. But the thrust of it, Chair, while that's being made is, I believe we may be in a position to delete lines, was it 106 and 107, by making this amendment to line 78. So line 78 would be amended to the thrust of it being an LEA may, but is not required to provide instruction to. And I believe that captures what the law permits. And because of that, the language in 106 and 107 would be unnecessary. So
So is that part of, let me just, is this part of your substitute motion then to add at the bottom, strike lines 106 and 107?
yes, sir.
Let's get that clear on this substitute motion.
Move the comma before. Required comma to provide instructions.
Any other comments to your motion, Member Carey?
No, I just want to thank the chair for taking the 5 minutes. It did allow us to resolve those issues, which would have taken much longer in this body. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for utilizing the time wisely. We have a comment from Member Reel.
Thanks, Chair. I was going to speak when we were going to have the motion to pass this rule, and just if I can just for 1 second talk about, I talked a little bit about this in our committee meeting, but I worry deeply about our health education and the restrictions that we place on it, because although it's our goal for students to follow the success sequence, we talk a lot about that, I sometimes find it unrealistic to expect that our students will stay abstinent. And although I would like our parents and wish for them to be the primary educators on sex education, I think it's less realistic to expect parents to be equipped and willing to have those tough conversations. So for me, the way we make the success sequence work is by educating on family planning. And I'm not a fan of the latest legislation. I know there's nothing I can do about that now, but I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about how I hope that we can better equip our students and educate them on how to plan for families in a healthy and realistic way. Right now, I feel like although there's nothing that our staff or any of us can do to help improve our health education, I feel like right now we are sending students with lacrosse sticks to go play golf. And yeah, they can probably still play golf with lacrosse sticks, but it's going to be really difficult and the chances of success are low. So I just thank you for letting me take a moment. I just hope that we can work together and find ways, and our legislators can find ways to be more comprehensive in our sex education and better equip our students for the future to actually be a success of the success sequence.
Thank you, Member Reel. Let me just restate the motion. We have one more comment here, but there's a substitute motion on the floor, and it is two parts. One, that the board amend line 78 to read 2A, subject to subsection 1C, and LEA may, but is not required to, provide instruction to include information about contraceptive methods or devices, and ... And the second part, and strike lines 106 to 107. Member Earl.
Thank you. Just a
maybe some question, or not questions, comments to add on to that. I think we're seeing a greater movement towards this. I think in the next couple of years, I think we'll even see more of that. Just that, I think for years we've had a negative or anti-have children movement. And I think we're seeing the ramifications around the nation and around the, not just our nation and state, but in other areas. But this idea that even pro-family, the idea that there may be benefits to having family and being successful. And so I think I think over the next few years, you're going to see more and more people. Some of that's economic, right? I mean, I think you're hearing that we'll give you $5,000 for having kids. I don't think that's the right narrative, but I do think for our children that the right narrative is the benefit that families are for each other, right? And that it helps. Often helps. I guess the supports for one another, right? So I guess just in adding to that I just see a positive narrative coming forward and look forward to that engagement. So thank you.
Thank you. Board members, the motion has been stated. It is in front of you. Seeing no other lights, let's go ahead and vote. Member Reel,
Yes.
thank you. That passes unanimously. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Motion and the,
Sorry, I'm sorry. That's an amendment.
that was the amendment.
That's an amendment. I got so stoked about moving on.
Well, don't do that.
I know, I should know better. Let's see here. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-474, School Instruction and Sex Education, Draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and vote. Member Reel,
Real is a yes.
that passes unanimously. Thank you, board, for your work on this. Back to you, Chair Earl.
Thank you. All good discussions. So the next item is, it's action around R277920, School Improvement and Leadership Development. And our staff have been very thoughtful about making this recommendation. This is some simplification language related to our Springboard and Elevate schools. And if you have specifics, I'm going to let the pros talk about it because we know it's a little bit nuanced, but it's actually trying to simplify. We have some schools that are involved in federal requirements for accountability and schools at the state level, and we've got our own improvement mechanisms, and that's the Springboard and the Elevate schools. And so this is designed around that. Sorry, I was giving you a little bit of information. So, but the motion before the board is that the board approve R277920, School Improvement and Leadership Development, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion has been stated and it is before the body. Let me just restate it here. Sorry. Get my mind in order here. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-920, School Improvement and Leadership Development, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Chair Earl, your light is on. Did you want to speak? Okay. Seeing no hands or lights, let's go ahead and put this to a vote. Member Reel,
Real is a yes.
that passes 14 in favor, 1 in opposition, that no vote coming from Member Bogus. Chair Earl.
I have some good news. We are done. But if you listen to our committee, we had an brief AI discussion at the end of it, and those come to us periodically. I know in Finance Committee, I love hearing the discussion from our trust lands So those little information pieces, if you're not able to catch those and you're just hitting the things that are hitting the action items, you really should grab those. So anyways, there you go. We're done.
Thank you.